Hello there. I recently watched a trailer for the new Roadhouse remake, which got me thinking about the original. So I pulled up a copy of the 1989 popcorn flick and now want to review it for you. Roadhouse is an action thriller starring Patrick Swayze as Dalton, Sam Elliott as Wade Garrett, and Kelly Lynch as Elizabeth Clay. The story was written by R. Lance Hill and adapted into a screenplay by him with the help of Hilary Henkin. Rowdy Harrington directed the film. The story begins with a lightning-fast introduction to Dalton, a cooler or bouncer who specializes in turning rowdy bars into respectable establishments. A bar owner comes to see him and offers him a large sum of money to come and help. Dalton takes the money and heads to the Double Deuce, a dive bar with the worst patrons you've ever seen. They fight, deal drugs openly, and harass every woman in sight. As Dalton starts whooping butt and cleaning up the bar, he makes an enemy of an incredibly powerful man named Brad Wesley. As Dalton's mission rages on, things escalate between him and Wesley, and the whole town finds themselves swept up in the chaos. Dalton reunites with an old mentor, makes a few new friends, and kicks a lot of ass. The story is incredibly simple and comes with a lot of action, a lot of sex and nudity, and a ton of live music. The cast includes Dalton, his mentor Wade Garrett, and his love interest for the film, Elizabeth Clay. There are a few people working with him at the bar, some bouncers to help him fight, and his boss who is desperate for his help. On the other side, you have Brad Wesley and his thugs. Some of them are disgruntled ex-employees pushed out of the bar, and some of them are just regular henchmen working for him. All of them are thugs who enjoy hurting people for the sake of it. Dalton is a quiet and serious man who believes in showing people kindness until they get violent. Then he beats them senseless. He's never lost a fight, but there are rumors he has killed his opponent before. Wade Garrett is the best bouncer in the business, but he's getting old. He taught Dalton everything he knows and is a master of de-escalation. He's also a master of putting his fist through a guy's face. Elizabeth Clay is a doctor at the local hospital. She takes care of Dalton after one of his fights and helps take care of his wounds. She's intelligent and caring. Brad Wesley is the local rich man who extorts the shop owners. He relishes in other people's pain and is quite bigoted. He also sees himself as a tough man who takes matters into his own hands. Visually, the film takes place in a small town with a handful of sets and locations. Most of the story takes place at a bar called the Double Deuce, with the rest taking place in the town surrounding it. The film starts with a bar fight, and there's another one every 10 to 15 minutes. In between the bar fights are shots of Dalton working out and heading around town to get supplies. As he does, we see Brad Wesley and his men terrorizing the people who live there in the background. There is a lot of action in the form of bar brawls, and the film also ends with a big climactic showdown between Dalton and Brad Wesley. Outside of that, there are lots of shots of naked women at the bars, and of people drinking and listening to a live band. Sound-wise, the film uses rock and roll songs at the bar and on the radio, and instrumentals during some of the later segments. The rock and roll songs tend to be played by a band that performs at the Double Deuce, and every one of their upbeat songs backs that night's bar brawl. The instrumentals are scored tracks that try to quietly follow the scenery and add a bit of emotion to it. They use them to add a bit of suspense and a sense of dread toward the end of the film. Okay, so how does it hold up? The writing is utter nonsense meant to act as a vehicle for the action, and the tantalizing shots of Patrick Swayze and the various women who get nude throughout the film. Brad Wesley and his henchmen are also cartoonish villains whose plan doesn't make any sense. Most of the characters are one-note stereotypes, and the journey doesn't have any stakes to it until about halfway through the film. As far as the audience knows, if Dalton fails, the bar just stays a dive bar. The only reason to stay invested is to see the next fight. Cast-wise, there are a lot of solid performances, but there isn't much for them to stand out with. Most of the cast are playing employees at the bar or henchmen, and they get to do some basic back and forth dialogue and maybe tell a joke or two. Patrick Swayze gets the majority of the screen time, but spends it playing a stoic, stone-faced bouncer who laughs in the face of danger. He does it well enough, but he is indistinguishable from any other action hero of the era. Sam Elliott appears to do a mentor role and put some good emotion into it, but doesn't get enough to make a big impression. Kelly Lynch has the same problem. She plays the love interest and actually has an interesting character, but they don't let her do anything with it. Visually, the film is well done with a lot of steady camera work and solid angles. There are a lot of good bar fights throughout the film and a lot of cool shots of the band performing. The Double Deuce is an interesting location and they do a lot with it. Outside of that, they have a few basic locations. They turn a few of them into ash with some big explosions, and they turn a mansion into a mini battleground between Dalton and Brad's men. The standout moments were fairly well done with at least 3 explosions and 1 major vehicle stunt. This film does action well enough to be entertaining, but the fights wouldn't stand out by today's standards. The explosions and stunts would. They are big practical effects that look great. Sound-wise, the film is entertaining and the band's songs make a huge impact. The way the rock and roll meshes with the fights to create high-octane moments was great, and it created a fantastic atmosphere in the Double Deuce. The instrumentals weren't nearly as strong. They tended to be a little too quiet and a bit hokey. They didn't get the feeling right or bring out much emotion at all. The film was much stronger in the bar when the band was playing. Overall, Roadhouse is a popcorn flick from the 80s. It has bad hairdos, lots of fights, and a lot of nudity. The writing is just good enough to get you through the film, but the visual journey is decent and there's some good music at the bar. If you like fun beat-em-up style films, this one's alright. It's pretty cheesy, but it's entertaining. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 6 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.